What's up guys, it's me, Kedar, and in this video I'll be taking a look at the darker side of board games. People weren't as open-minded as they are today, and there was once a time where simple games about telling stories were associated with devil worship and Satanism, where wonder turned into witchcraft. Let's take a look at this solemn time in tabletop gaming history. Dungeons & Dragons, released in 1974, was the first role-playing game ever made. It was a game about collaboration, creativity, and storytelling. Dungeons & Dragons was a game that bridged borders and brought people together. Dungeons & Dragons was a revolution in the gaming community, and all was well until the year of 1979. James Dallas Egbert III was a 16-year-old prodigy attending Michigan State University, in which he was majoring in computer science. Egbert had depression, loneliness, struggles with strict parents, drug addiction, and was having difficulty accepting his homosexuality. On August 15, 1979, Egbert disappeared from his room in Michigan State University and fled into the utility tunnels under the campus. Egbert made an attempt to commit suicide in the tunnels, overdosing on methaqualone. His attempt failed, and Egbert went into hiding. Egbert's parents were obviously concerned, and a police search for Egbert was started. The story of James Dallas Egbert III became popular after a journalist for the State News, which was the Michigan State University's newspaper, published an article on Egbert's disappearance. Egbert's parents hired private investigator William Deere to find their son, and Deere, using his limited knowledge of tabletop games, blamed Egbert's disappearance on Dungeons & Dragons. Deere had believed that Egbert and his friends were playing a live-action version of the game in the tunnels under the university, and that Egbert wandered there, confusing the game he played with reality. Egbert, after weeks of unsuccessful searching for him, moved to New Orleans, in which he made a second failed suicide attempt using cyanide. Afterward, he moved to Morgan City. Egbert then called William Deere and revealed his location to the investigator, and the two met up. Egbert then revealed his story to William Deere, explaining his depressive mental health and troubles, and asked Deere to keep his story a secret. Deere placed Egbert in the custody of his uncle on September 13, 1979. 1 year later, Egbert passed away from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. 4 years after Egbert's death, William Deere told Egbert's story in his book, The Dungeon Master. In 1982, Irving Lee Pulling killed himself with a gunshot wound to the chest. His classmates and the news stated that Irving had problems at school and didn't fit in too well. His mother, Patricia Pulling, threw all of that evidence out of the window. Pulling had decided to sue her son's principal, and then she chose to sue Tactical Studies Rules, the company that made Dungeons & Dragons at the time. Pulling's claim was that a curse placed on the character that her son played by the principal who was running the game was real, and that her son was affected by that curse. Courts threw out both cases. In 1983, Pulling continued her crusade against Dungeons & Dragons by forming BAD, or Bothered About Dungeons & Dragons. Pulling teamed up with fundamentalist Christian groups and a psychiatrist named Thomas Radecki to help her fight against Dungeons & Dragons. Any form of legal action BAD took, they failed at. BAD lost every single attempt at legal action against Dungeons & Dragons. But the public didn't care. They had made up their minds about tabletop gamers and Dungeons & Dragons. Tabletop gaming dissidents and even the police verbally harassed role players, stole and destroyed their books, dice, and models, and prevented gamers from meeting up to play, and they planted false evidence of satanic rituals and drugs before calling the police on gaming groups. Gamers had become a caste that was rejected from society. Eventually, through the hard work of critics of bad and defenders of Dungeons & Dragons, the negative stigma surrounding the game was broken down. As pulling sketchy academic credentials were debunked, gamers began to spread information about the false claims of Satanism and witchcraft associated with Dungeons & Dragons. And in 1989, a huge blow was delivered towards bad's credibility, which was Michael Stackpole's polling report. In the report, it criticized the thoughts of anti-RPG campaigners, and it showed that the suicide rate was lower among role-playing game players than the average person, and the report was widely distributed across the nation. The satanic ritual abuse stigma of role-playing games was exposed as the mass hysteria and con artistry that it was, and the noticing of the many failures of anti-RPG campaigners had become known to the public. Witnesses that testified to the abuse caused by role-playing groups were shown to be made up, and that anti-RPG campaigners just wanted to get into the spotlight. The public had been educated, and thanks to many dedicated gamers and skeptics, Dungeons & Dragons stepped out of its place as the game of Satan.
And that is the story of the Satanic Panic. Please leave a like on this video and subscribe for more content, as well as comment any other facets of tabletop gaming history you would like to know down below. If you're interested in getting your hands on a brand new trading card game, the Gladiator trading card game, a link to its shop page will be in the description down below. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.